Your Honor, I have a check right here for $1 million. Take it. Make this go away. Nobody has to know. That is what he said, out loud, in my courtroom, in front of every person sitting in those gallery seats. A man worth more money than most people will ever see in 10 lifetimes looked me dead in the eyes and tried to buy my gavel. I have been sitting on this bench for a long time. I have seen anger. I have seen tears. I have seen people beg, argue, lie, and break down. But I have never, not once, had someone slide a check across the defense table and smile at me like I was a vending machine. My name is Judge Frank Caprio. This is Providence Municipal Court. And what happened on that Tuesday morning is something I will never forget. If you believe justice should be equal for everyone, rich, poor, young, old, you are going to want to stay right here, because what happens next will blow your mind. Let me take you back to the beginning. It was a gray morning, the kind where the clouds sit low and heavy, like they are waiting for something. I walked into the courtroom at 8:45, same as always. Coffee in my stomach, case files on the bench. The gallery was filling up with the usual faces, people waiting for their names to be called, some nervous, some tired, most just hoping to get it over with. I had no idea that by 10 o'clock, this room would feel like a volcano. The bailiff called the case number 2026 TR004471, the state versus Marcus Delwood Thorne III. I looked down at the file, hit and run, property destruction, leaving the scene of an accident, and one additional charge that had been added just 2 days before the hearing, attempted obstruction of justice. I took a slow breath. I set the file flat on my bench, and I waited. He walked in like he owned the building. Marcus Thorne was 31 years old. He was wearing a steel gray suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. His shoes were Italian leather, the kind that click when they hit marble floors. He had a watch on his left wrist that I later learned was worth $80,000. His hair was perfect. His posture was perfect. His expression said one thing very clearly: I do not belong here. He had 2 lawyers with him, both in expensive suits, both carrying leather briefcases. They sat down on either side of him like bodyguards. I greeted him the way I greet everyone. Good morning, Mr. Thorne. Do you understand the charges against you today? He leaned back in his chair. He did not look at me directly. He glanced at one of his lawyers, then back at me, and said, Your Honor, I think there has been a significant misunderstanding here. His voice was smooth, practiced, the voice of a man who has talked his way out of things before. I said, We will get to that. First, let me introduce the other party. Her name was Dorothy Sims. Dorothy was 63 years old. She had worked as a school crossing guard for 19 years. Every morning, rain or shine, she stood at the corner of Maple and 4th with her orange vest and her stop sign, making sure children got across the street safely. She had never been in trouble a day in her life. 3 weeks before this court date, Dorothy had been walking home from her evening shift at a second job. She cleaned offices 3 nights a week to help pay for her husband's medication. She was crossing the street at the crosswalk with the light in her favor. A car came around the corner too fast. It hit her cart, knocked her down, and shattered the side mirror of a parked car beside her. Dorothy broke her wrist. She tore a ligament in her knee. She missed 2 weeks of work. The driver of that car did not stop. He did not check on her. He did not call for help. He drove away. That driver was Marcus Delwood Thorne III. When Dorothy limped to the witness table, she was still wearing a brace on her wrist. She moved slowly. She sat down carefully, and when she looked at Marcus Thorne, she did not look angry. She looked tired, the kind of tired that goes deeper than sleep can fix. I have been in this courtroom for years. That look, I know it well. That is the look of someone who has been invisible their whole life and is finally asking to be seen. I want to pause here for just a moment. If what you are feeling right now is anger, a slow burn in your chest, then you are human. Share this video with someone who believes in fairness. They need to hear this story, because we are only getting started. Now, back to Marcus Thorne. His first lawyer stood up and said that Marcus had not realized he hit anything significant, that the car was moving quickly, that it was dark, that his client was a major employer in this city, running a tech investment company that employed over 400 people, and that the charges were a gross exaggeration of a minor traffic incident. I let the lawyer finish. Then I asked Marcus directly, "Mr. Thorne, were you driving on 4th Street on the evening of February 3rd? He said yes. Did you feel your vehicle make contact with something? A pause, a quick glance at his lawyer. Then, I may have felt a small bump, Your Honor. I thought it was a pothole. A small bump. Dorothy Sims sat 2 feet away from him with a brace on her wrist. I said calmly, I see. Let's look at the evidence. Detective Roy Allard stepped forward. He was the investigating officer on the case. He placed a tablet on the evidence table and connected it to the courtroom screen. Evidence 1 was a traffic camera recording from the corner of Maple and 4th. The footage was clear. You could see the silver sports car, registered to Marcus Thorne, come around the corner at high speed. You could see Dorothy's cart go flying. You could see her fall. You could see the car slow down for exactly 2 seconds. 2 seconds. And then you could watch it drive away. Not a pothole, Mr. Thorne. The gallery was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses on your ears. Marcus did not flinch. He whispered something to his lawyer. His lawyer stood up and began talking about camera angles, lighting conditions, and the possibility of misidentification. I stopped him. Counselor, the license plate is visible in 4 separate frames. This is not a misidentification. That was the first crack in the wall. Not a big one, but it was there. The second piece of evidence came from Detective Allard's phone records investigation. 2 days after the accident, someone had called Dorothy Sims from an unregistered number. The voice on that call, which had been recorded because Dorothy, God bless her, had started recording all unknown calls after the accident, told her to drop the report. The voice offered her $20,000 to stay quiet. It told her that going to court would not go well for her. Dorothy had turned that recording over to the police immediately. Voice analysis matched the caller to a man named Gerald Petch, Marcus Thorne's personal assistant. Gerald Petch, when brought in for questioning, immediately gave a statement that the call had been made at Marcus Thorne's direct instruction. The courtroom shifted. I could feel it, like the air pressure changed. Marcus was still leaning back in his chair, but his jaw was tighter now. His hands were flat on the table. I looked at him. Mr. Thorne, did you instruct your assistant to contact Ms. Sims? He said, Your Honor, that call was an attempt to reach a private settlement. That is completely legal and standard practice in civil matters. I said, The call included a threat, Mr. Thorne. The word not go well was used. That is not a settlement offer. That is intimidation. His second lawyer stood up, started talking about context, about the culture of business negotiation, about how the word choice did not constitute a legal threat. I let him sit down. Then I asked Detective Allard to bring in evidence 3. Right now, before I tell you what that third piece of evidence was, I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel. Because stories like this one, real stories about real justice, those are the stories that matter. And I do not want you to miss a single one. Now, let us continue. The third piece of evidence was an envelope. Detective Allard explained that during a routine review of courthouse security footage, installed 2 months ago after an unrelated incident, the camera above the defendant's entrance caught something. It showed Marcus Thorne arriving at the courthouse that morning, 40 minutes before the hearing began. It showed him speaking with a man in a gray jacket near the side door. That man was later identified as a courthouse parking attendant named Victor Ness. Victor Ness had been approached by Marcus Thorne and offered a payment to deliver an envelope to the judge's assistant. Victor Ness, to his enormous credit, had taken the envelope directly to the court clerk and reported what happened. The clerk had notified the court administrator. The court administrator had notified me. I already knew about the envelope before Marcus Thorne ever sat down. Inside the envelope was a personal check, made out to an entity called Court Administrative Services, written in clean, bold handwriting, signed by Marcus Delwood Thorne III for $1 million, and attached to the check a handwritten note that said, "For case dismissal, no further action required. Thank you for your service." I picked up that note. I read it again slowly in my head, and I set it down. I looked at Marcus Thorne, and then I said it. "Mr. Thorne, I have the envelope." The whole room changed in 1 second. His face went white. The lawyer on his left grabbed his arm. The lawyer on his right stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. Marcus Thorne leaned forward for the first time. He looked at the envelope on my bench. He looked at the check. He looked at the note. And then he looked at me. And what came out of his mouth, I want you to understand, I have repeated this moment in my mind dozens of times since that day. What he said was, "Your Honor, that check is an expression of goodwill. Every system has a price. You are a public servant. I am simply paying for a service. That is how the real world works. I do not apologize for understanding the system better than the system understands itself." 10 seconds of silence. Not one person in that gallery made a sound. Not a cough, not a whisper, not a breath. I looked at that man for a long moment. I felt something move through me. Not rage, no. Something colder than rage and more serious. Something that comes from 30 years of sitting in this seat and watching people choose who they want to be. Then the gallery erupted. Voices, movement. Someone near the back said, "Oh my God," loud enough that the bailiff turned around. A woman in the second row pressed her hand over her mouth. Dorothy Sims, who had been sitting quietly this entire time, closed her eyes. I raised my hand. One motion. Silence returned. "Marcus Thorne, let me talk to you now. Not through lawyers, not through notes, just you and me. You walked into this court today and treated it like a transaction. You looked at these walls, this bench, this flag, and you saw a price tag. You thought the only difference between you and justice was a number with enough zeros. Marcus, you said every system has a price. Let me ask you something. What is the price of Dorothy Sims's broken wrist? What is the price of 2 weeks of lost wages? What is the price of lying awake at night wondering if the man who hit you will ever be held responsible? Tell me that number, Marcus. Write me that check. You called yourself someone who understands the system. But Marcus, you do not understand this room at all. This is not a boardroom. The people sitting in these seats do not have stock portfolios and investment advisors. They have Tuesday mornings and bus fares and the hope that when something goes wrong, someone will listen. That is what this room is for. You employed 400 people. You flew on private planes. You wore a watch worth more than some people's homes. And all of that, every single dollar, did not give you the right to knock a 63-year-old woman to the ground and drive away. It did not give you the right to send someone to silence her. And it certainly did not give you the right to buy your way out of this courtroom. Marcus Thorne, money is not justice. It never has been. And as long as I am sitting in this chair, it never will be. Now let me tell you what happens next. On the charge of leaving the scene of an accident, you are guilty. The fine is $35,000. That money will go directly into a fund that supports victims of hit-and-run accidents who cannot afford medical care. You will pay it within 30 days. On the charge of criminal intimidation through your assistant Gerald Petch, you are guilty. That adds an additional $50,000 fine, payable to a domestic victim support fund. Not because of the amount, because of the lesson. Your driver's license is suspended for 2 years, effective immediately. If you are caught behind the wheel during that time, the suspension doubles. No exceptions, no negotiations. You will complete 360 hours of community service, not office work, not writing checks, physical, present, in-person service. 120 of those hours will be served at the Providence Crossroads shelter, the same shelter that many of this city's crossing guards, janitors, and overnight workers turn to when life gets hard. Another 120 hours will be served at the city's public hospital ward, assisting staff with non-medical support tasks. The final 120 hours will be assigned at the discretion of your supervising officer based on your performance in the first 2 rotations. You will report every Saturday and Sunday morning at 7 o'clock for the next 18 months. Your attendance will be logged. Any missed session adds 2 additional sessions. You will write a personal, handwritten letter of apology to Dorothy Sims, not typed, not dictated to an assistant. Your handwriting, your words. The letter must be reviewed and approved by this court before it is delivered. It must not contain legal disclaimers. It must not reference settlements. It must say, in plain human language, that you are sorry. You will also appear, once at a date set by this court, at a public high school in this city. You will speak for 30 minutes about accountability. You will not have a script. You will not have a PR team present. You will stand in front of teenagers and tell them what you did and what it cost you. That is not optional. Now, there is the matter of the envelope. Attempting to bribe a sitting judge is not a traffic charge. It is not a civil matter. It is a criminal act. The charge of attempted bribery of a judicial officer is being referred to the state prosecutor's office effective today. That proceeding is separate from this hearing. You will face it separately. I will not be the judge in that case, as it should be. But let me be clear. That envelope, that check, that note, they will all be part of the record. Bailiff. The bailiff stepped forward. Marcus Thorne finally stood up. His 2 lawyers were both talking at once, but Marcus said nothing. He looked at me one more time. I looked back. I did not look away. The handcuffs clicked. He was escorted out through the side door for processing and a preliminary custody appearance. His lawyers followed in a rush of expensive shoes on marble. The gallery watched him go. Some people exhaled. Some sat very still. Dorothy Sims sat at that table with her hands folded, and for the first time since she walked in, her shoulders came down, just a little, but I saw it. 6 weeks later, I received a report from the community service supervisor at Providence Crossroads Shelter. Marcus Thorne had shown up on his first Saturday. He had been assigned to kitchen duty. He had washed dishes for 4 hours. He had not complained. On his second Saturday, he had asked if he could help serve the breakfast line. I do not know what that means yet. Change is slow. Change is not a single morning in a shelter kitchen, but it is a start. Or maybe it is not a start at all. Maybe it is just a man doing what he was told. Only time will tell the difference. I want to close with this. Every morning, I drive to this courthouse and I walk through these doors and I sit in this chair. And I know that most of the people who stand before me are not billionaires. They are people who got a parking ticket they could not afford. People dealing with a situation that spun out of control. People who just need someone to listen. Those people deserve the same justice as anyone else. Not more, not less. The same. That is what this bench means. That is what that flag behind me means. And no check, no matter how many zeros, will ever change that. Marcus Thorne thought money was power. But in this courtroom on that Tuesday morning, the most powerful person in the room was a 63-year-old crossing guard in a wrist brace who refused to go home when someone told her to. Dorothy Sims. That is what courage looks like. And if you believe that dignity is not for sale, share this story. Because justice only works when people are watching. This is Judge Frank Caprio, Providence Municipal Court, and I will see you next time.